going to go ahead and get started. And hopefully our fourth panelist will be here. We all know what the traffic's like out there. It's always kind of crazy. So, my name is Brian Hirsch, and I work full time with a team of 3 other people in the Lyon College of Business Career Center. This is Joelle Green. She is a new career coach and employment specialist who is actually going to be out at the Frisco campus. And so she'll be working with students out there. But my staff is full-time, working with college of business majors. You can make an appointment with us through Navigate. You can go to careercenter.unt.edu at any time and see literally thousands of resources that we have on there to help you with career planning and just figuring out different questions that have to do with career planning. I do want to let you know that we have a career fair that's going on September 14th. You'll probably hear more about that, hopefully, in your classes. Hopefully your professors will be announcing that. I want to encourage you to dress up that day and come to that event. It's a great opportunity for you to start to learn networking and to interact with some really amazing companies where the event is completely full from the employer standpoint. And probably about 50% of the employers that are going to be there, the employer representatives, probably about half of them will be actually UNT alumni. So you'll have the opportunity to meet business professionals who work for all of these companies, and you can go into Handshake at any time and see all 120 or so companies. You can see what they're recruiting for. You can read a little bit more about the company and that kind of thing. Hopefully, if you're taking Business 1200, your instructor in there will go over a little bit, give you a little bit more of an idea of how to do that. But having said all that, let's get started with our panel. And I'm just going to go and have our panelists just introduce themselves. Guys, what did you major in? And who are you working for now?
You want me to start, or?
I'll start. Hi, everybody. My name is Lazavion Hammock. I am a 2021 graduate of UNT. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Business Computer Information Systems, BCIS. I currently work right here in the heart of UNT. I am a senior IT support specialist for administrative IT services here on campus.
Hi, my name is Chawa. I graduated in 2019 with a BBA in economics. I currently work for GM Financial as a commercial credit analyst.
Hey everyone, my name is Virginia Garza. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I graduated here from UNT back in May of 2020, so right in the pandemic, with my OBHR, so Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management degree.
And Virginia and Chawa were both student workers in my office, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Just to let you know.
I forgot to mention I worked for Fidelity Investments. Yeah, my bad. But both Chawa and I worked for Brian when we were here at UNT.
Yeah. So, where'd you go to high school, and what do your parents do? Or your parents, or whoever you grew up with, what do they do?
I graduated from Gabriela High School. That is a high school right on the tip of the Texas and Arkansas border in a little town called Texarkana, Texas, about the size of 66,000 people, so a little bit smaller than Denton. Me personally, I was a first-generation college student. I was raised solely by my grandmother. And at the time, she was pretty much disabled, so she was basically the full-time caregiver of me. So she was single-handedly responsible for getting me at least to the college doors and beyond.
I actually went to high school in Africa because that's where I'm originally from. Did my high school back there, actually started college back in Africa. Then I moved to the U.S. in 2014. And I started off at a community college at Northlake. It's in Irving, and transferred to UNT. So it's been a long journey for me, but I'm about to graduate with my MBA in December. So still out, doing the school thing, but almost done. But yeah. Oh, and my parents, single mom. She works for the United Nations. She's a program analyst. So similar to, I guess, what I'm trying to do. But yeah, so.
So if anyone's familiar with Oak Cliff, the Oak Cliff area, I actually went to the Townview Magnet Center and was there in the law program. So I thought I wanted to do something with law. Turns out there's a lot of law stuff in HR, so that's kind of where that went in. And then I actually went to Oklahoma State my first year and then transferred to UNT my second year in 2017. And my parents, so I'm a first generation college graduate from high school and from college. So, both my parents were born in Mexico, didn't speak English, and so they raised my brother and I here, and, I took as many opportunities as I could, but both of them just kind of, my dad was a maintenance worker. He cleaned pools for pretty much 24 years of his life. And then my mom, she pretty much did like healthcare, taking care of like hospice, stuff like that.
Does everybody know why I asked those questions? Yeah.
To show that everyone comes from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, where different people are coming from, the people that you're going to be going to school with, these guys were sitting exactly where you were a few years ago, and they had a successful career in the College of Business, and now they're having successful careers beyond that. So that's why I asked the question. So thank you. So hey, Virginia, when did you graduate? Well, you told me that. What was your educational career goal when you started school?
So like I mentioned before, I was really interested in law, hence attending the Law Magnet at Townview. And when I first started at Oklahoma State, I knew I wanted to do business because there was always going to be an opportunity with business. And that was essentially my first reasoning. Second reasoning, once I got to UNT and trying to pick an actual major, was one, I sucked at math, so I didn't want to do accounting, and I failed my finance class. So I didn't want to do accounting, didn't want to do finance. Marketing really stressed me out. So I kind of started going down the list, and then finally was like, you know what? There's law in HR. I don't want to be a lawyer, I don't want to be a cop, but HR seems to kind of fit in the middle. And I also had to, I did some soul searching or whatever at 18, 19, 20 years old, and realized that I also was interested in psychology, but didn't want to really pursue being a psychology major. So HR kind of fit in the middle, and I get to use some psychology background, and I get to use law background within HR. So.
Yeah, for me, the college I did back in Africa, I was doing a bachelor's in social science economics. So, when I came here, I guess I just kind of wanted to continue from what I was doing. So I did business economics because I thought it was a good tie between business and pulling some economics, which is like a social science, but not exactly. So yeah, I get, the best of kind of both worlds. And my MBA is business studies, which is kind of also pretty broad, but it incorporates all the economic stuff, a little bit of, accounting and finance in there as well. So I guess I just wanted to be well-rounded.
For me, my career goals were pretty much static throughout my life, actually. I always knew that I was interested in something IT related. I've been interested in IT since I was about 6. So I knew coming into college what I wanted to do. I was originally interested in the computer science track, but after kind of a little bit of more guidance per se, I knew that I didn't want to solely do computer science. I knew that I wanted to eventually become a manager of some type, become some type of business figure in IT as well. So I didn't limit my career aspirations to be so technical, and BCIS is the perfect medium between the two.
So none of you changed majors while you were in school here? Did you have friends that changed majors or struggle with trying to figure out?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
So I had one of my roommates actually. So I stayed on campus for 2 years, and then remember I transferred. So my sophomore and junior year I stayed on campus, and my senior year I lived off campus in an apartment. But my roommate, my junior year, she wanted to do some sort of like music theory, and then she switched over to psychology, and then she switched over to like business, and then she realized she didn't want to do business. So she kind of flip-flopped everywhere, and I think she was just kind of trying to figure out who she was. And here's a plug. So the Career Center does like, if y'all still do like the e-portfolios, and at least I did it when I was here, and like they make you take this like test with like different career fields and all of that. So I basically told her, because at the time I started working at the Career Center, I was like, hey, there's this like test, and then there's personality tests and all these other things. Maybe try taking one of those and see if that will help you kind of evaluate where your skills are, where your interests are, and maybe those might align. And so I think she ended up sticking with business, and now she owns a, I don't know how you call it, like some sort of like van business type of thing. Can't really say what she sells, but she has her own business, so she's an entrepreneur, and I think she really found her passion there.
Yeah, I'll share about my fiance. She graduated with a finance degree. Her bachelor's, she actually went to UTA, which is in Arlington. Then when she was done, she had trouble finding work, and when she found the job, she hated her office job because she's always liked baking and cooking, and you know, back home her parents own a hotel, and she thought, why did I do this finance degree? She realized she did it because her dad wanted her to do finance. But at that point she was like, I got that bachelor's out of the way, and you know, I don't like what I'm doing, so why don't I dive into something that I'm actually interested in? So she went to culinary school, you know, got an associate's there, and she transferred to UNT, and she just finished her master's degree in hospitality management, which is kind of in the track with, you know, what she can do back home if she ever wanted to go back. So, you know, it worked out, I guess, but it took her a long route to get there too.
One of my classmates who, in the grand scheme, we finished out our BCS program taking about 8 classes together, actually. Previously, they were a computer science major. And I think that's one of the things that college really teaches you is understanding your personal abilities. Sometimes, you know, everything is not for you, if that makes sense, is when you really think about your abilities, where you're wanting to go. Sometimes things may not line up, and college is the perfect place to experiment with that. So ultimately, they had a much better experience and a less of a rocky journey towards the end after switching to BCIS. Not saying it was any easier, because it wasn't, but it was more aligned to their interests and personal aspirations that they were able to finish out in a much more smoother spot.
And if I could just add, is everyone in here pretty much freshmen? Yeah? Y'all are just starting, so it's more than okay for you to switch. You're still a freshman, you still have time to figure out what it is that you want. Use the Career Center as much as possible, because when I was here my sophomore year, I didn't know it was there. And they could really help you kind of find what it is you might want to do and where your skills are and where your interests are and how those two might align. But you have enough time, so please don't feel like you should be stressing out right now. Like, school hasn't even started.
Yeah, and so the plug, the couple of plug things to think about here. One is that you guys are supposed to have done modules 1 and 2 of the Career and Professional Development online course. And the career test that Virginia was talking about is part of that. And then there's an opportunity for you to sort of process the results of that a little bit in your own mind. So if you haven't done it yet, then you might want to go back and do it because the exercises are directly relevant to what we're talking about here. The other point that I would make is that probably nationally, about 50% of the students who are sitting right where you are right now, all across the country that are freshmen, don't really know what they want to do when they graduate. Many of them don't know what they want to major in, and so that's perfectly okay. You're in really good company. And part of our thing by having you do the career curriculum and everything is to get you to start thinking about that earlier rather than later, so you're not scrambling so much, which is what tends to happen. So, what steps or what kinds of things did you do, and we'll start with Xavier, what kinds of things did you do to kind of ensure that you were going to meet your goals while you were in business school?
For me, I really much had a plan. I'm very much a planner and ahead. I love to plan ahead, look ahead. So for me, I was a little bit different because I already sort of knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted that to look like, right? So I made the appropriate steps to make sure that happened. Now, granted, a global pandemic was not in the list of odds. It was not. So that's where having a good buffer is very important, because sometimes you can plan things to a T, minute by minute, hour by hour, and things still not add up. So I had a plan of what I wanted to do and the things that I wanted to do, and I also built out a worst case scenario. So let's just say that the things that I plan out, nothing happens. How do I still make sure that at least the goal that I set coming into college is still met, right? So I think having that plan, sticking to it, and finding those resources in the process is very important. And also having a good, solid backup as well as a barrier to make sure if things don't go quite as right, that you're not completely stuck in the water.
I wish I was a planner, but I think for the most part, I was winging it, and it looked like just kind of signing up last minute for classes and doing my assignments last minute as I worked and stuff like that. But somehow it all worked out. So this is probably not the best advice, but obviously take advantage of your resources, right? Like the Career Center is definitely a huge one, helping you figure out what you want to do after you graduate. Helping you secure internships. I feel like that's a great stepping stone to after you graduate as well. So just there's so many resources on campus. There's so many people you're going to meet that will direct you. Point you the right direction. I feel like just taking advantage of those resources will help you get where you're supposed to go.
So unlike Chawa, I am a planner. But I would say maybe 3 things. One, networking. I came to college because I was like, ooh, I want to make friends. And then I'm not going to say I didn't make friends, but I probably met more acquaintances than I did like super, super close friends. But those acquaintances are the people who kind of helped me stay professional. There was Virginia from Oak Cliff, and then there's Virginia who's like corporate Virginia. And so the networking and building the relationships, I think, is the one thing that kind of helped me be successful there. Again, going to the career fairs, attending panels like this, stuff like that was what helped me make that connection. Second thing was internship. Once I started my internship and basically learned what like the corporate life was going to look like, really helped me figure out, one, if I liked that lifestyle, but two, what actually I was going to be learning on a day-to-day basis in my actual job. So I think that kind of set me up for success there. And I interned at Fidelity, so by the following year when I returned full-time, I kind of already knew what the company culture looked like. I knew what type of skills I would be using. I knew a few people who would advocate and vouch for me. So I think that really helped me figure that out. And then I would say the third thing was mental health. We talk about it more now than we did 2, 3, 4 years ago. And mental health is really important. I think we all learned that during COVID, things really sucked and you didn't get to see people, and you know, there was all these tragedies and things that went on around us that we couldn't really stop, and so it's important to keep that in mind. College is going to be stressful, but it's going to set you all up for success. So keeping in mind your mental health is really, really important, and finding ways to breathe, relax, and just be yourself.
Great. What are some of the pitfalls that students should be looking out for that could keep them from being successful as students in the Lyon College of Business?
One of the pitfalls is getting comfortable. You should not be getting comfortable during this process, because if you're getting comfortable, me personally, I feel like you're not growing, because you should always be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're not, your growth is gonna basically take either a downward slope or it'll stay the same. That means you're not pushing yourself enough. So a pitfall major is always constantly push yourself. There's always something that you can do. I promise, once you bend yourself a little bit more, then you'll realize that becomes the normal. Then you can bend yourself some more, but not at the expense of your mental health. So be very careful of that. I know one thing that the Lyon College of Business specifically does is encourage academic excellence. So by no means is business school easy, because it's not. It is very much designed to keep you learning at the highest possible level. And I have no doubt that everyone in this room is capable of that. So just keep in mind that don't settle. Don't settle. Because if you're settling, that means that there are sometimes opportunities that you may be leaving on the table that may be perfect for you. You just need to tap into yourself to be able to reach those.
I'll kind of agree with what he said. Like, just don't get too complacent with, getting used to having, things kind of given to you, right? I mean, this is college, and you guys get a lot more freedom than, I guess in high school. You can choose not to go to a class or whatever, right? But all of that is going to have its consequences. So I'd say just, don't forget your basics. You know what's right for you. You get a whole lot of advice from, different people, right? People that mean well, and, sometimes it gets super repetitive and you're like, I think I got this, and, you can slack off sometimes, right? But I feel like just always taking that extra step, or, putting that effort to make sure you're getting it, you're doing things, like actually putting them into action, right? Because you can listen to us all day, but if you're not going to do it, it's not really going to benefit you. So I'd say just, make sure you're taking notes, you're actually taking action steps to, some of the advice that you're getting every time.
So I would say that whole like work-life balance, school-life balance, if you don't balance it well, then again, you'll probably get really, really stressed out, and your mental health will probably really go down. So I would say it's probably that like work-life balance, like make sure you're learning to balance things. And I was gonna mention something else, but it kind of just like, it flew away. So it'll probably come back to me later. But yeah, that's probably the one thing I would keep in mind.
Great. So UNT is known as a very diverse campus, and there's a lot of opportunities here to learn about people that are different from ourselves. Can you tell me a little bit about how you engaged while you were on campus and how that has kind of helped you as a professional beyond, you know, your time as a student?
So I could go first here. So when I started at Fidelity Investments, I started in an HR rotational program. So every 6 months I did like something different in HR. It was compensation, employee relations, agile, and et cetera. But one of my rotations was diversity and inclusion. And up until I got to that rotation, I had some like diversity and inclusion experience. I was on a D&I team here, organization here, sorry. And then I was on a D&I team in my first rotation before I graduated from this program. And so I didn't realize that diversity and inclusion was a passion of mine until my last rotation. And I didn't realize that there were so many different things, so many diverse perspectives, so many diverse backgrounds and cultures and experiences when I was at UNT that I didn't take advantage of. And so one of the things that I think, like the Holy Festival happens here at UNT. They also have like the mariachis, they have the folclóricos, they have like, is it like Asian Pacific? They have like so many different events here at UNT, and it's so exciting to see all the different cultures and perspectives. Like not everyone has the same identity. I identify as a woman, I identify as Hispanic, and I identify as first generation. Like there's so many intersectional like personalities and identities. It's just so exciting. I don't know if I even answered the question, but
You did okay.
okay. But it was just nice being able to experience that now and then take those experiences and look back and see like, wow, I should have paid more attention at UNT when I had all these different people and experiences and cultures around me.
I didn't have a choice but to, you know, obviously be, you know, in a community where it's so diverse. Like not a whole lot of people from Africa that I met at UNT, so it's not like I had this little community I would go to like stay in my little, you know, corner, right? Like, so I've had to engage with diverse, you know, individuals like the whole time I've been here. So I feel like it's easy to like, you know, like be attracted to what you're familiar with, right? And think, okay, this is my people and this is how, but you know, in a community like this, like you're forced to, you know, cause engage with all sorts of cultures and, you know, people from different backgrounds. So I feel like just being open-minded to learning new things and, you know, just breaking that mindset that you understand everybody because of, you know, how they look or where they come from, right? And just being intentional about, you know, actually wanting to learn, right? Because you could easily think you understand certain people until you actually get to engage with them. So I think diversity is all around us, right? We just have to appreciate it and, you know, engage. That's what I
For me, it was more about being, again, intentional with who you are specifically interacting with and how you interact with them. It's very important to surround yourself with many different identities. I know that if we all took a deep look of our identities, many of them are similar, but none of them will exactly match. Exactly. So that means there's something to take from everyone, right? And we should also be very cognizant of the things that we do or the things that we may have learned that may not be very friendly to other people. So I know there are some things that we have normally have learned, heard, picked up on that, you know, some of us may make, you know, entertainment without fully realizing the impacts of the things that we say and how that may come across to other individuals, right? So some of those things we do have to unlearn. Being diverse and specifically inclusive is hard. And UNT, again, is the perfect place to learn. Perfect place to learn. Last time I checked, we have 435 student orients here on campus. There's something out there for you, I promise.
So, now you guys are out there working in the real world. What kinds of skills should students be trying to obtain while they're here as students so they can be successful once they graduate?
I'm going to start off and just say, I think the College of Business offers Excel certification.
Literally what I was thinking. Literally what I was thinking.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, you cannot like you have to. It's not fun, right? I remember going through it. I think me and Virginia actually helped each other through it. But yeah, I think Excel is like so underrated, right? Like everywhere I've worked, right? We use Excel, and if you know a bit more advanced features than anybody else, it definitely puts you ahead of the curve. So I'll say, Excel is one of those, and I'm sure different majors have different solid skills that you have to learn, right? But I'll speak for the business, economics, finance, accounting kind of deals, and Excel is definitely one thing you should definitely be learning. And other skills would be things like resumes, right? Obviously the Career Center offers that. I'll take advantage of that because that sets you apart, right? If you have it right, you're getting the call versus someone who just threw it together, right? Things like mock interviewing skills, right? Those go a long way. Learning how to negotiate salary and stuff, right? It's stuff that you might take for granted, but not everybody has access to that resource. So I'd say skills like those, take advantage for sure.
Don't take all the good ones. And when he says that we helped each other, it was mostly Chawa helping me with Excel, because I genuinely had no idea what I was doing. But yes, Excel is probably the number one thing. I told my company, and they're probably going to see this video, so I'm not going to say that right now. But I did say, hey, I'm proficient at Excel, but I knew that I needed more help. But on a day-to-day basis, I was learning so much more, actually working in it every single day than I was at school. But if you're able to do that now and learn how to do probably the top two things were pivot tables and VLOOKUP. If you know how to do those two things, then you're on the right path. Those are probably the two best things you could learn how to do. And then the second thing I was gonna mention is again that relationship building skill. Not only the networking component, but actually building the relationship and being comfortable with talking about yourself. Because you are going to be your number one advocate, right? You'll have mentors, teachers, older friends, family members who will probably be like, oh, my kid's really awesome, or this person's really awesome, X, Y, and Z. But if you aren't comfortable talking about those skills and talking about yourself, then you're not really going to show them who you really are. So learning how to be comfortable talking about yourself, the whole elevator pitch thing, being able to say this is the school, is my major, this is a fun fact about me, this is what I want to do, and these are my experiences, that I think will kind of help you learn how to build that relationship with people and not just network with them.
First off, this isn't a plug, but it's a plug. In my second year here, I was a member of the Professional Leadership Program. Those of you, if you are someone who is truly interested in somewhat of the business setting, the Professional Leadership Program does have, you do have to be somewhat further along in your journey, but it really does address a lot of the soft skills that most employers say that students coming out of college need work with. And all of those things, elevator pitches, resumes are all part of it, right? And however, one specific thing that I would definitely encourage you all to learn quicker is, number one, is the difference in professional dress, is the difference between business casual and business professional. And the other is networking, right? Just saying your name and introducing yourself is not enough. People sometimes talk to thousands of people per day. You have to make yourself stand out, nurture those relationships. A relationship is almost like a plant. If you don't nurture it, constantly pour into it, it will die. And at that point, you don't want to be in, let's just say, an interview, or you may be looking for an opportunity and someone says, I don't remember you. Or someone that says, yeah, I faintly, but I know this person really well. So unfortunately, in this day and time, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
You know, it's funny, he says like for you to stand out in that elevator pitch, I love to say the fun fact thing. Because when I do my like elevator pitch to people I'm talking to, my fun fact is, hi, like I have 2 dogs, a snake, and 10 cats. And then people, literally the faces y'all are making, like people literally say, why the heck do you have 10 cats? And then we start this like conversation. And then in another 6 months or so, I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, you're the girl with the 10 cats. I'm like, well, I don't want to be known as the girl with the 10 cats, but I'm glad you remember me. So yeah, the fun fact is really good to keep in mind. And the managing multiple priorities, that was one thing I was going to mention. You're going to be doing a lot of that in college. Homework, work, other stuff. Like, y'all are going to be doing a lot. So managing multiple priorities is going to help you a lot. If you become a pro at it in college, then you will be a pro at it in your like full-time job.
This never happens. I take a course that I have to take and I hate it. What do?
You pass it. I'll go. Like I said earlier, I failed my finance class. It was like the most basic finance class ever. I hate math, I suck at it, and ironic, I work for a financial services company. But thankfully I don't do any of that, because if I had to do 401k and Roth IRAs and the actual accounting part of it, then you all would probably be broke. But I hated finance, and I sucked at finance, and I failed it, but I tried my hardest the second time around, and I passed it. And I didn't even just pass it with like a C, I passed it with an A. Maybe. Yeah, I passed it with an A. But you don't have to like it, but pass it and do well, because at some point, something about that class is probably going to pop up later, and it's probably going to be useful, so keep your notes.
You know, obviously you're not going to be good at everything, right? There's going to be classes that you're not great at, and I feel like just being honest, accepting that I'm struggling in this class, and asking for help, right? Like there's resources like tutors and or your classmates, right? You know there's someone in the same class, the same, thing you're struggling with, someone that's probably acing it, right? I feel like being humble enough to ask for help, make them your friends or your study partner, right? I think it helps a lot. I remember, in this MBA program, I could pick and choose certain courses, and I ended up in a data analytics class, and I didn't know how much programming is in that class, right? You have to learn like Python and RStudio, which is a language I'm not familiar with, but there was obviously people that were really good at it, and I just had to humble myself and sit down with them, do those Zoom, online meetings with them. And I ended up, making a pretty decent grade for someone who had no idea about programming going in. So obviously use your friends as a resource as well.
Exactly. That's where your your peers come into play, because when you have nothing else to lean on, you have the peers. Again, that's where networking comes in at. Most people are not inclined to assist you if they have no relationship with you. So having that network is really important. I know for me, there was actually a class within my major I hated. And I knew, in full transparency, it was, I believe, Java 2, actually. I did not take the advice from my previous professor and prepare in between semesters. I didn't do that. And like I said, in full transparency, I was the person that made on the first exam, I made a 25 on the first exam. And at that point, that was probably the lowest academic assignment I've ever done. And I knew at that point, I couldn't move forward in my major if I could not clean this up quickly. And that's where, one, I had my classmates to help me out, because I knew somebody in this class was, again, acing me. Somebody was. Because there's no way nobody is getting it, right? So forming those relationships, also understanding sometimes some classes that you take does require more time than the average. So that's where you need to be able to adjust your priorities and say, hey, I have a really tough workload this semester. Maybe I need to cut back. It's okay. And really understand. So at that point, talking to your professors, reaching out for help. When it was all said and done, I finished that class with a B. And knowing in college, after seeing a failing grade on the test, you might as well pick it up already.
Yeah. I put mine on the fridge.
Yep.
When I passed. Not the failing one, when I passed.
Yeah, and, there's lots of resources at UNT. There's a learning center in the Lyon College of Business in this building, right down the hallway from here. There's 4 or 5 labs, and there's like a BCIS lab, there's an accounting lab, there's one for finance. So there's lots of resources to help you out. But one of the things that gets people in trouble very quickly in college is they wait. So as soon as you know there's a problem, go and ask for help immediately. Because by the time you try to fix it yourself, you're so far behind it in a lot of these classes that it's really difficult to catch up. So, just address it immediately. Kind of be a little bit humble, and just ask for help, right? So I want to open the floor up and see what kind of questions the students have for our panel.
Do you have any tips on how to stay motivated throughout college?
You stumped all of us. Motivation. I don't know, my motivation was just like my mentor. If it weren't for her, so shout out to her. If it weren't for her, then I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So my motivation was literally driven by wanting to make her proud. And wanting to make my family proud. Again, I'm a first generation, so being the first person in my family to graduate high school and then graduate college was like the biggest achievement ever. And then being the first in my family to get a corporate job with benefits and good pay was also a really good achievement. But keeping them proud of who I am and who I was going to become, I think is what really motivated me.
I would say just knowing that you don't really have an option to fail, right? Like, I'm not trying. I'm not, paying this tuition so I fail this class or have to come back and repeat it, right? Like, I feel like knowing, this assignment is due, and if I don't hand it in on time, then I'm not getting the points for it, right? Like, for me, I guess, with my, lack of planning and last minute, like, I have to do it because I have like a few hours to turn it in or whatever. So I think just the pressure of wanting to not fail is what motivates me.
Likewise. Also, having those people who are not in this process with you, kind of as an outsider, that is often the encouragement that I needed because, you know, they were not sitting in this room with me. A simple "I'm proud of you" goes a very long way. Having those friends that will tell you that out of the blue, that right there can pick you up and when you're in the lowest of spirits. Because knowing that, one, this is temporary, this is going to end at some point. So I know another is, for me, the end in mind, the more further along I got, the more motivation that was. At the same time, I do regret moving so quickly. I finished my program in 3 years, not 4. So that was something that I had to quickly realize that I'm kind of paying for now because I didn't stop to smell the roses sometimes. And sometimes that break is kind of very motivating to either speed up or slow down. For me, it was slow down.
Other questions?
How early did you guys start your internships, and which ones would you say are really worth looking out for that really helped you guys get to where you are now?
Internships, for me, I'll go ahead and tell you, my process was cut short because of COVID. I was in the middle of a lot of interview processes, having interviews 3 to 5 times a week. And I remember on one Thursday, I got 4 phone calls saying that we have to stop the process because we have received, directive that we can't move forward. So for me, it was a little bit more difficult because I didn't have an internship to put on my resume. Thankfully, I did have enough experience in my career field through earlier coursework, an earlier internship to kind of make up for that. So that's where a little bit of grace came into play when I was in full-time jobs. But in terms of the search process, as early as this fall, actually, I can almost tell you within the next 2 months, applications are going to open up for the following summer. And a lot of people have that process solidified and finalized by December.
Yeah, I was a bit late to starting internships. I did 2 internships in my final year of my undergrad. So I did one with TD Ameritrade that led up to my postgraduate first job, pretty much, because it was also in the financial services industry. And the second internship I did was with an auto finance company. It was called Exeter Finance. And that helped me land the job that I'm currently with GM Financial, because, it translated, right? The skills were kind of similar, the industry was the same. So, I regret not starting early, but, getting 2 in my last year definitely helped me to get where I'm at. So I would say as soon as you can get it in, because I promise you, they hire you as soon as you come out if you work with them before.
Also, just kind of putting it all together, is when this goes for any job, when you're applying for jobs, internships, don't count yourself out. Because sometimes just because you don't check all the boxes doesn't mean the door's closed for you. If you can even check one of the boxes, apply. Because especially when the interview process gets more mundane on the other side, they're willing to make major exceptions to get you in the door or to get somebody in the door. So not saying that they're settling on you, but you want to at least put yourself on the table every time. Because sometimes a lot of people, even myself, have counted themselves out because I don't check all the boxes or I don't have enough experience. Then boom, someone who was sitting in the exact same room with far less experience got the position, got the opportunity. Well, you were removed from the pot because you never put your name in the hat.
I think there's a statistic out there that women actually tend to be the ones who, if they don't check off all the boxes, don't apply to jobs. So keep that in mind, y'all. Like, y'all can do it. You don't need to check off all those boxes. But I started my internship looking process the summer of my sophomore year, so going into my junior year. And that's just because I knew of a friend's family's friend that was like, oh, hey, we're going to have an internship. Do you want to apply? And I was like, sure. And then I learned a couple of things that summer, and it was paid, which was awesome. And then that following summer, in my BUSI 3200 course, which is one of those 1-credit courses, so y'all take the 1200, and then you'll take 22 and then 32. There was a Fidelity employee who came and talked at a panel during one of our courses, and as I was working at the Career Center, I had to do some sort of like presentation for the career ambassadors. And I had to interview someone who did something I wanted to do, so HR, and was an alumni. And so I ended up interviewing someone from Fidelity, and then they told me there was an internship, and then I applied, and then that's kind of where it landed. But as a freshman, you don't need an internship. But if you want to start early, then go for it. I mean, and if it's paid, even better. And I think depending on your major now, the degree plan, you do have to take an internship of some sorts, and I think it does have to be paid, or some of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on, if you're doing a 4-credit internship in the Ryan College of Business, it's directly related to your major, right? So it does have to be paid. And then the requirements, there's 4 majors right now that require an internship. And there's a 5th one coming online soon. And then there's option in pretty much every other major. Yeah.
What are the 4 that require the internship?
Logistics and supply chain management, operations and supply chain management, aviation logistics, and professional selling. Right? And human resources will be the next one that will come online with that. It's not quite there yet. Yeah.
How much do you recommend visiting either the Career Center or anyone to talk to about like either your major, how you should plan things out? Like how much do you recommend that?
Annoy Brian as much as possible. No, I'm kidding. I don't know, like, I probably didn't go as much as I should have, and then I started working there and I was there all the time, surprisingly. But I would say before career fairs, if you're already interested in going to those, definitely start to prep. Anytime you have questions, if you're taking a class and something comes up and you're like, hey, what do you think about having a job in this space? I'm taking a course in this type of area, what do you think? I don't know, I'm not gonna say like go twice a year, because I feel like that's too little, but definitely don't go like more than 20 times a year. I don't know, maybe Brian wants you to go 20 times a year, but yeah.
It's either that or as often as you feel you need it. There really isn't a prescribed time. If there's any question that you may have, either setting an appointment or possibly email or something, that's helpful. But if you feel like you need to go 5 times, go for it. If you feel like you may need to go 2 times, it's also fine too. But go as much as you feel like it, or if you can detect some type of change or you maybe lost, that's what they're here for. I'm sure no matter how many times you do decide to go, they'll be happy to see you every time.
Come on guys, speed round. There's some more questions.
What kind of experiences do you think would help us improve our resumes besides like internships?
That's a good question. Organizations. I mean, you said it for sure. There's like, what, 400?
435.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, if you're really active and you can't, obviously you can't join all of them, but having those orgs, your set 5 that you've been through all the way through college, especially the ones that you like really a lot that you're involved with year after year, that's really good and valuable experience. I know in the end, I did a lot of SGA work, although I was never interested in government. Ironically, more I am now, but by the end, I was also a member of NT40 and a few other things. But orgs is a very good thing to put on your resume, especially if you don't have much experience. That is experience.
I think just to add on that, one thing that some people overlook is there's always a GPA on your resume, right? Like if you have a 4.0, you're definitely shining, you know, more than everybody else, right? So I'll say getting those awards, Dean's List, President's List, all that stuff, it really helps just to make you stand out. So
One thing to say is like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what somebody told me, so I was like, okay, cool. But like, if you're at a 4.0, but you're only doing school, and you're not working, and you're not in organizations, but you have a peer who has a 3.5, and they have a job, and they're a leader in an organization, and they do volunteer, and an employer looks at both of your resumes side by side. That's not trying to discredit the fact that you're like a 4.0 student or whatnot, but like that person is managing multiple things. And even if you don't have the time, like some people might be parents, and you'll see that we have non-traditional students at UNT all the time. So it might just be that that's their full-time job, you know? And people can have that. People know that life happens. But definitely organizations, volunteer experience, any certifications. So like that Excel class, whenever you have to take it, getting that certification, putting it on your resume looks good.
This one's for you, you're in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what like extra like obstacles did you have to go through being like a woman going into business being first generation?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Okay, so what kind of obstacles did I have to face?
Or do you have any advice?
So this is just specific to like going into the corporate world. Again, first generation, parents didn't speak English, they had no experience with getting benefits, they didn't have experience with 401k, investments, anything that I was basically getting from working at Fidelity. So I think that was the challenge, is like seeing that my peers had that experience. They had their older brother, older sister, parents to kind of rely on to help them with onboarding into a corporate environment. They already knew like, hey, yeah, get that benefit, get that health insurance, or get that investment portfolio, and I didn't have that. So that was probably the #1 challenge for me. And to overcome it was just studying and asking people, researching, trying to figure out like which medical insurance I wanted, just based off of like what worked and what didn't. So the first year I picked like a really, really high deductible, and this might not make sense to some of y'all, but I ended up paying a high deductible one and then I didn't use it. And then the next year I kept the same one and then I used all of it because I got really, really sick. So it's like trial and error, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll speak. I'm not a first gen, but you know, I guess the struggles of being an international student, right? And I'm not sure if there's any international students in here, but you know, coming from, you know, obviously third world country into, you know, something fast as America, right? Like I didn't know where to start. I remember my first job being at Subway on campus, right? And they threw me behind that counter, told me to like, you know, like swipe cards, and I wasn't even sure I was doing it right? Like I had to give change, and I think I couldn't tell a dime from a nickel, right? Like it was crazy. But I feel like just, you know, having a positive attitude while working, you know, my second job I got because while I was working at Subway, the director for the Career Center where at the community college I went to, she would always get a salad, and that made me, you know, get off the line so I could do the thing right for the salad. And she said I had a great smile and I'll make it right? So one time she said, hey, we're hiring at the Career Center, would you like to apply? I was like, sure. And she was in the interview and she was like, oh, this guy has a great smile, and you know, I think he'll be a great welcoming face at the center. So I started off at the Career Center at North Lake, and that translated to the Career Center at UNT, which opened up opportunities for internships. That opened up, great jobs after I graduated. So I feel like just those small steps, being diligent with like the little things, actually opens up doors for bigger things, for sure.
Being very intentional about, especially around campus. One thing I love about UNT is UNT does a really good job at recruiting its full-time members. They are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. All of my supervisors I've had here, I've had 5 different positions at UNT, and I would go back to work for any of them. And it's so refreshing to know that having that relationship with everyone is amazing, and each of them are somewhat emotionally invested in your own personal success. If for whatever reason, if you notice that the people that you talk to around campus don't have that, run, because it's such an amazing experience. With everybody that I've come in contact with, as long as you're doing the work, full-time staff here will do whatever it takes to make sure that you're successful, and that shines. That really says a lot, especially those people who are on LinkedIn. Again, Dr. Hirsch is one of those people. You should all be connected with after this. I promise. He's posting things all the time. Tap in. I promise.
I'm going to bring your QR code up for you in just a moment, but quickly let's go down the line. Your best advice for new freshmen.
Best advice, check your email.
Follow up.
Surround yourself with good people.
Y'all, let's thank our panelists so much. Good night.